fortunate enough to get the very first batch of the FTI. That was in 1961-64. The 3 years course, cinematography itself. My background was mainly to take up this cinematography only since I had been using still photographs as a hobby when I was studying my till graduation. After graduation, I happened to know about something cinematography will be taught in one of the institutes. So I start again?
Yeah, no, because I was just wondering, am I blocking that? Like, then I realized not really. So, yeah, once again, please.
Film Institute started in 1961, and the very first batch for 3 years, 61 to 64. I happened to be fortunate enough to join the very first batch. And the admission was it happened, subconsciously, because I was interested in photography in any case from the very beginning. And one of my photographs being selected for the Photopina Foreign Countries exhibition. So one Mr. Lakshmi Narsu, who used to process photographs from India to send abroad for the exhibitions, he sent me a small note saying that cinematography is an extension of photography. You want to make your career in motion picture, then there is an institute coming up in Pune. That's it. That changed my entire course of my life, it guided my profession, and I happened to just land up in the institute. And I completed my 3 years after graduation.
And who were your teachers there?
The first year that Professor Lakshmi Narsu stayed on, and that time the first principal, that time there was no director of the institute. The principal of the Film Institute was Gajanan Jagirda, who was a very well-known film actor. He was first principal, and Professor Lakshmi Narsu stayed on for 1 year. The second year, the new professor joined, one Professor C.V. Gopal. He happened to be a very well-known cinematographer from the films division. So under his guidance, under his teaching, we continued and we finished our 3 years course. And then so my moving into the profession was just a cakewalk. There's no struggle. It just happened. It's not this. There was any additional qualification I had except passing out from the institute. Because the very first assignment I got to cover Pope Paul's visit in India. In 1964 November, he was visiting. He was the first Pope to go out of Vatican and chose India as a country and happened to be in Bombay. And then that was my first assignment by one of the top filmmakers, company called Image India Films Private Limited. And Image India Films Private Limited was the largest documentary filmmakers after the film station. And that is the change of my profession. And that is stepped into a documentary. And then they also make ad films. And I just wanted from the very beginning, I had an inclination to do something shorter films, ad films. When I used to see in cinema theaters, I felt something is missing. I was not knowing what is missing at that time. And then when I started getting an assignment and start shooting it, that is where you actually evolve yourself. The faster takes, better lighting, the crisp camera movements, and then effective use of lenses, all that, I could just do it, and then suddenly advertising agencies and producers realized that these films would look different than what they were doing at that time. And then the other fortunate enough to be associated with the 4 top advertising filmmakers, and between them and my work has evolved a kind of a style for the advertising.
Who are these 4 advertising filmmakers?
Those days, very well-known filmmakers. They were not that they were doing many other works,
Yeah.
but then work picked up.
True.
The moment I became an associate with them, and they are that Image India Films Private Limited is the first one,
Okay.
because there's a big company
Sure.
having 4 directors, Shanti Chaudhary, Clement Baptista, Vijay Kar, and Ramesh Thapa. These are the people, Star Wars. So I was shooting for them, and then other filmmakers like Zafar Hai, Kailash Surendranath, Suraj Rai, and Prahlad Kakar. So between these 2, and other people were there, Amin Sani was there, and Hamid Sani. So these are the other 4, 5, and Durga Puri Productions.
Correct.
Yeah. So these are the people were giving me an assignment, and every time I went on, evolving some new technique and adding new lenses, new cameras, the slow motion photography, extreme close-up, getting lenses for extreme close-ups. Then those days happened to be only the film, so there won't be any, there was not any
Video.
post-production technique, other than, if you want to do some dissolves, you go to the lab. If you want to do some superimpositions, then again you have to go to the lab and do it in a different way. So I used to do myself in camera dissolves, Mitchell camera dissolves, and then superimpositions. That is where, if you see the earlier films, like Liril.
True.
Liril became a landmark in advertising. The first Liril we started in 1974, and it went on for about 10 years with the same girl, Karen Lunel. The agency's producers could not replace. She was so good. And that film really had, it became a milestone. The reason we used to have 3 different cameras. Addy 2C was a normal camera, and then Mitchell camera for the superimpositions and dissolves. And third camera was Mitchell high-speed camera, where the tossing of the hair, playing with playing with the water and all that. We were doing it. We were doing with high-speed Mitchell camera.
Okay.
Should I stop for a while?
No, it's okay. You continue. There was some boy who came.
That was fantastic experience for me.
So I just wanted to repeat, there was one particular camera you said for high-speed shots of the Mitchell, by Mitchell camera. And that was for slow motion things?
Yes, see, the Mitchell cameras normally is 24 frames per
Correct.
second. Yeah, and it is fixed 24, perfect 24 frames.
Correct.
Then if you want to have any high speed, slow motion, then you have to hire a different cameras.
Correct.
And that Mitchell high speed camera was available. At that time it was 80 frames per second.
Okay.
80.
80.
80 frames per second is the highest.
Highest.
And it can stretch to 90 frames, but
Not more.
they recommend 80 frames per second. That was the camera. So we used to have for the slow motion shots, and that camera we used to carry on. Though they were bulky, Mitchell, and it needs different generator for all that, But it was fun to do those kind of films, because then as I said, what was,
Could you just elaborate a little more about this commercial in terms of shooting
yeah,
style
so
or something?
this commercial, I think for many years they were not knowing anything what goes behind this to make this commercial. The reason being, that there used to be only film release, film theatre release, and those days ad films used to be 1 minute films in general. But also there was no taboo when it comes to the cigarette films.
True.
And cigarette films used to be about 2.5, 3 minutes. BD films, they were.
Correct.
You see, those are the lengthy films because there used to be storyline
Correct.
and they're more interesting. So this particular film, if it is to be released in say about several theatres in India simultaneously, you need to have about 3,000 prints. And to make 3,000 prints, one single negative is
Not good enough.
impossible. Yeah. So you need to have 10, 12 negatives to make 120, 200 prints maximum out of every negative. So then that means you will have to actually have about 10 to 15 original negatives to make 3,000 prints finally to release all over the country simultaneously. That means that this girl has to act. If I need 10 okay takes, she has to do at least 20 takes. Under the chilled water. Waterfall was we discovered this waterfall because they were looking for an enclosed greenery and then the waterfall there. So this location was chosen after the survey at Kodaikanal. And Kodaikanal, this waterfall was seasonal, and during the monsoon, south monsoon is October, November. And under the chilled water, she had to perform this for many, many takes, okay takes. So we used to have about 10 to 12 original negatives to make 3,000 prints. And since that girl was perfect and could not be replaced for almost 10 years, we went on doing this exercise again and again and again. That became almost a landmark in advertising. And the many other films where we had to do more than one negative, we used to have 2 or 3 okay takes. Then it went on, all the launch films, there used to be, everything is launch in those days, whether it is Nescafe or it is Maggi noodles or Thumbs Up, Double 7 or Campa Cola, Campa Lemon, Campa Orange, all those soft drinks, which again was very interesting subject used to be and shoot all over the country. So there were endless films. A lot of soaps were launched. A lot of other eatable products. So the launches were there, and constantly we used to get the advertising films.
Since advertising need very, very refinement in terms of lighting, in terms of techniques, in terms of shot taking, because there are limited number of shots, every shot has to be perfect. And some certain films need a special kind of effects or something to be done at the time of shooting, because as you said that there was no post-production facilities at that time. So could you recall some of the commercials in which some special techniques were used which were not easy to do? It was really a kind of I would say a challenge to do those things, because you really have to work out the indigenous mechanism to do those things.
Yes, the commercials, naturally it has to be glossy. Visually it has to be appealing. At the same time it has to convey a kind of consistent storyline in a short form, in 1 minute in those days. At the same time it has to sell the product. That's the main criteria. So the product has to be highlighted always. So whether it is a drink product or it is something is being mixed, or it is to be passed on from one hand to another, those kind of things it has to always properly exposed, properly lit. The product always used to be more prominent when it comes to commercial lighting. At the same time, depending on it's early morning sequence or late evening sequences, we used to be as close as possible visually, and that always used to be little challenging lighting wise. And even those days when I'm talking about 40-50 years ago, and it went on almost for another 20 years since then, we never had different kind of lighting today what we have in our hands. So the basic lights used to be quite bigger in size. The miniature lightings never used to be there. So even to light up in smaller areas, it used to take a little more time. And also my technique remained for many years the direct lighting. Though there was a kind of indirect lighting technique used to be also there. Today it's called a bounce light. So indirect light now you needed more, because now today technology is a little changed in the sense of now more in a digital format. And also it's easier for you to basically light indirectly, because otherwise when the characters move from one place to another place and all that, the direct lighting always is more difficult. Not impossible, it's difficult more than bounce light or indirect light. So the lighting, it's not very complicated as such, or something I have not done which others have not done. But they're keeping in mind always to give that feel of morning light, evening light, or glamorous light is very important. Then the textile films, you need different kind of lighting. So, and
to bring the texture, or
it's more of a feel for the whatever is being projected. You see, the highlight has to be there on whatever you are doing, that particular commercials. So that is more the reasons. And also the locations have to be, it has to be, if it is a very rich location, so every object has to be lit properly, your background, the pictures on the wall has to be lit differently, and artifacts which have been there, or bookshelf is there. So those are specific spotlight, and the kind of broken way of lighting, not the flood lighting. That used to be a little more prominent when I was doing lighting about these things. And the second thing is that the faces for the models always used to be very, very pleasant. They were very, there I used to spend a little more time to light up once I know who is actually a particular model. Those days, all appearing in advertising used to be models.
True.
Today they have been replaced by the film stars. You see, and the film stars, they come with their own baggage.
True.
So I don't know how the producers handle them. But for us, we used to finish the film maximum 2 days. Every commercials, except Little and other commercials which used to take much more time. In fact, the first Thumbs Up was shot the first time abroad. We shot in Mauritius when Thumbs Up was launched, and then we had a number of Thumbs Up 500 with a lot of cricketers. So we used to again travel with them.
I remember filters became very important when it came to advertising, and so would you talk about some specific filter which were used prominently by you, and then it becomes more popular in India, many other people start following the similar kind of trend, or which was not used before?
As see, when I started, when I used to take the camera on the rentals, always I used to have a tough time, because every time when camera used to come for shoot, some particular lens is not there, the filters were not there, and some kind of technical problems always used to be there. So my first priority was to see why don't I own my own camera, and that has happened. That has happened, which probably never happened till I decided to have as a cameraman having his own camera. So those days we used to rent cameras from the studios. So most of the film studios used to have cameras. One or two producers has their own cameras, but they're all basic cameras. So when I had to do some kind of little more specialized visuals, so I had to have kind of different lenses as well as different filters. So then finally I decided to go for a camera, which it took a hell of a lot of time to get camera, and my first camera ID2C I got in 1974. At that time it used to be license large, so you had to apply for license and you had to prove yourself you are the actual user. Then you paid 225% of duty, and in spite of all that problems I got my camera. And then I have my own lens filters. So I have extensively used a lot of filters. The filters are the close-up, apart from close-up lenses, I was first to get my macro 100 close-up lens. Then the diopters for the zoom lens, so that you can go closer for the focus. Then you have low contrast filters. You have soft X filters, which are the diffuser filters. Then I had also introduced something called split field.
Yes.
The split field was never heard. And when you look at the lens, a filter which is a broken filter, but the broken filter used to create extraordinary visuals. And that is a filter that is a half filter, that you can have live action is one side and your close-up, extreme close-up near the camera, either drinking or a product being placed or product being picking up. Everything used to be within the frame. You can see the two different actions both in focus. And that split field became very, very popular. And more or less I used to land at every commercial 1 or 2 shots of that.
Can you just name 1 or 2 commercials which were used with this split field filter?
The enormous number of commercials, but most of the soft drink films.
Yeah.
Always soft drink films when action used to be on one side and the extreme close-up of drinking in the other side, or pouring of a drink into the glass, or ice cubes falling into the glass. So these are the things, and a lot of mixing medical medicines, like some of the tonics films, where you're pouring the liquid in a spoon in a close-up and someone is drinking in the background simultaneously. So because today it is much easier to do optically, but in those days there was no such thing, and the commercials never used to have that much budget to go and sit down in labs to create all these things. So I became a kind of specialized when it comes to those kind of things.
One particular question, what were the technical problem while using this particular filter in terms of being very specific about something that this need to be taken care when you're using this filter?
Yeah, so very much, because see, it is not like a patchwork of two visuals in the frame. It has to be merged, it has to be fusion. The fusion has to take place. For that you need a certain kind of focus, and keeping the critical position of the one object close to the camera and the other one quite far away at a distance. So that kind of the distance used to make a kind of the partition of the line is fused and out focused such a way that the two images were merged into each other, and that used to be always the critical focusing position. At the same time, use a kind of very light diffuser which also used to help in washing out that any prominent
in
line
conjunction
used to be
with a split field filter.
there. With a split field, so that you create a kind of
Hallucination,
yeah, a kind of
softness.
you will not notice
That's
the line
line.
between.
Where the filter finishes
Yes.
and the
Yeah, because the
open
two
space
sections
begins.
were there. So that used to be a little time consuming, but then it always became a landmark, in those days, which I don't think for many years anybody used. Say. So, not that it's very simple that way. But the question is how effectively you can use in the commercials.
True, true.
And also the extreme close-ups were not there those days. The second thing is why my commercials used to be a little different and others used to be. So the earlier, before I came in, and a lot of commercials were made. Lever Brothers used to make a lot of commercials. But the cameraman normally was film industry, and they are very comfortable to take very good shots, excellent shots. But the rhythm they never used to understand for the commercial rhythm of cutting pattern. So where you need faster camera movements, the quicker catching the situation and creating more shots. So the earlier, if you see the films, 50s, 60s, there used to be 6-7 shots in the commercial. Then gradually went into 30, 35, 40 shots in a commercial. The editing pattern also changed because your taking style has changed, and you could get more shots, and communicate, more interestingly. The style also changed a little bit in commercials in 70s, 80s.
So in terms of style, the change of style as you just mentioned now, what changes were there and how did a cameraman get accommodated in those changes?
Yes, but the cameraman, it's not
In terms
really
of, you said, number of shots. One thing
Yeah.
you mentioned that the number of shots become more. So what were the other elements which came into the advertising in terms of shot taking or in terms of overall, say?
Take for instance, if you have a shot, the director, of course, the cameraman was not an isolated person in filmmaking. I have heavily depending on my directors, their understanding of the subject and their brief from the clients. So that was, in any case, is a basis of creating any visuals. You will have to understand what you are doing it, because you are not doing it your own. What happens is, suppose if I take one shot, it's a steady shot, then I just quickly change the lens and take the same shot the second time in a different format, either it's closer or wider, and half face, kind of things. And camera movements, every camera movements, again I change quickly another lens and take another shot. So in the beginning it was just happening for them as an additional shot, but in the editing table they were getting a choices. And sometimes the choices became adding 2 more shots within the same requirement. So that way, automatically the shots have been increased, in the commercials, and that has helped the director, cut much faster and creating, the faster tempo in commercials. And luckily at that time, more or less all those directors for whom I was working, they just could understand my style, and I could understand their positive response to my kind of treatment to the shot, whether lighting or lensing or camera movements. That has more or less created a kind of a different class of films those days. And also the good support, because in theaters, people used to go and see commercials more, you know. The moment commercials finish and film stage and documentaries used to start, and they used to go out for their cup of tea. And then I had done enormous number of cigarette films. And the cigarette films were fun to do, you know, because they were sometimes celebrities, sometimes very good dancers, sometimes, you know, very interesting subjects.
In terms of lighting for a specific kind of product, say for example, now you're talking about cigarette films, so smoke is an important part of cigarette. So do you remember something specific or some special thing you added to those kind of a film in terms of lighting style?
Yes, the smoke, it's not only the cigarette smoke, it's coffee, tea, you know, a hot cup of coffee, hot cup of tea, you know, this, getting the smoke noticeable is not accidental, it is always created. You know, it was created with a kind of having a subdued background to enhance the foreground smoke. And the cigarette films, the way in which, you know, the cigarette is put in the mouth, the way in which is lit, you know, and the kind of glow you get on the face, all that, you know, it's not an accidental, it has to be created. Yeah, in the visual, when you see it, it may look it's natural, but nothing is natural. Everything is created. Yeah. So nothing natural in filmmaking, because everything is selective. It is only within the frame what you want to show to the audience. And I remember particularly the difficult lighting situation was in there was launch of Nescafe. We did at that time there was well-known voice king person, Pratap Sharma.
Who?
Pratap Sharma.
Pratap Sharma, correct.
Pratap Sharma was very well known
True.
in his voice.
Correct.
Every second film was his voice, English and Hindi.
True.
He was there, and when Colin Gilladwala at that time, Air India Air Hostess. And with these two, we launched the first Nescafe in India was launched. I don't exactly remember, maybe 68, 69, something like that. The Nescafe in the morning, Nescafe afternoon, Nescafe in the evening, those commercials. The second commercial, they wanted to show how Nescafe is in the coffee bottle. So the brief was only just brief. You know, and those days, your commercials, so Nestle's commercials used to be approved in Switzerland, not in India. Through Indian agency, it used to go for approval and come back. So the coffee, how coffee is made out of the coffee beans. So that was a little tough after getting the brief from them. So how the coffee beans are selected, you know, raw, you know, and it has to be beautifully exposed to see, you know, that real, very appetizing coffee beans, and then how it is being roasted, and the while roasting, that how the steam keep coming out, and then that goes into dissolved to coffee powder, and that coffee powder dissolved into water, and from the water it is again crystallized, and that powder is loaded into the coffee bottles. So actually it is not the grind coffee beans, it is actually coffee decoction being made, and it is again crystallized and put into the bottle. So that whole film was only on that. See, that was very challenging.
It was a commercial or it was a corporate?
It was a commercial.
Commercial.
It was a commercial. It was again a 1 minute film. You know, the end of it is, you know, happy is a couple sipping coffee. So that whole thing is created in a close-up. You see, in a turntable, when they keep moving, you know, then you dissolve to roasted, you know, replace the coffee roasted with beans, and then dissolve again to the powder, and then again is becoming into liquid. All those from the raw coffee beans to the rest of place, you have to have that steam all the time. The steam to establish that it's a freshness that is being roasted, and so those kind of films were always very time consuming and very innovative. You will have to think in those days, how it can be done. So one of those films again is
Again, you're talking about the cigarette film and smoke, and when we do these kind of film, the density in the overall atmosphere is a very, very important thing to match all the time, because when you light up and everything is set, and then when you're going for next shot, already smoke has settled down. So how did you tackle these kind of things in your shots? Because it used to take a long time, sometime half an hour, 1 hour. By the time you're ready again, the density has gone down.
Yeah, so we'll have to do it again and again, because and in a shorter time, if we'll have to do it, those are the things, which on the spot decisions. And also the consistency is already, the lighting consistency is already in your mind. Even it has to be recreated, it has to match with your shot, earlier shot. And it's to match with the earlier shot, you have to keep in mind, what was earlier. Because there is no such video assist like today's
True.
technology. You have a video assist to refer,
Correct.
or you have a still to refer. It's a film.
True.
You could not see anything you have already done half an hour, 1 hour ago. So you'll have to that always keep in mind and do it as close as to matching the same situation, same scene. Yeah. And the cigarette films it's more of fun rather than it's storylines. Most of them are storylines. And only thing is that some other films were more than 2-3 days, because of the locations keep changing it. And we'll have to keep in mind the same kind of character is the same. So that's not really that difficult for any cameraman to do it.
Another question is, in advertising, there was a time when this Channel V came and MTV came, and a lot of that style of MTV, Channel V came into the advertising, which gave a kind of a genre also to the advertising, if I call it like that. So in which weird angles, and we are not following a certain, call it as a aesthetic of lighting, and they said that it is stylized in terms of lighting and shot taking and things like that. So what stylization is stand for you when we talk about the lighting in terms of stylized lighting?
No, style gradually changed in commercials and later on in feature films also. Now, if you see it, it's more of a kind of a brainwash from MTV's films. MTV came very strong, and then it went on to that kind of film. So that consistency, not necessary if you are having that kind of shots put together, random shots. You don't need a continuity.
True.
You see that our time, the continuity was a must. There is no question of if there is an entry and exit and an entry has to be proper. And today is not necessary. Of course, today's thinking power also changed. You can show a person anywhere instantly. That, your mind immediately adjusts. So similarly, the style of cutting, style of lighting is changed also gradually. And that's mainly the influence from the television. And this much later. I'm talking about the much earlier days.
Sure.
Where we had, it was with strong grammar of cinema is to be maintain the continuity of lighting, continuity of shots, continuity of entry and exit. That we followed for many years. There was one, and I was doing a lot of documentaries apart from commercials. Of course, more commercials than the documentaries I have done. and also did on and off in some feature films. In documentaries, I should say the one which real challenging to me was Air India film. And when the producer got an assignment to do an Air India film on Air India, and Air India flies from various destinations. They're landing, take off at midnight, most probably midnight, early mornings. They're checking in, checking out.
That was that was documentary.
This was a documentary of 20 minutes film, and it's to be shot in many countries.
And who directed this film?
And this film, when it was commissioned to Mr. Zafar Hai, and then since I have been always shooting for him, so there was no second thought for him to ask me, which way we can do this film.
True.
Then at that time, the fastest film, Kodak's fastest film was 100 Days.
Nobody will believe that.
Yeah, and so you can imagine the 100 Days film. This is 1982. Okay. And then 100 Days is the fastest film, and then I visualized this film needs faster film than 100 Days. And then also because I know, it has to be shot many places candidly. And some of the huge airports outside India, whatever existing lighting conditions we'll have to shoot. So then I had to work out a kind of strategy to create faster the sensitive film out of the 100 Days. And then it's again is my background from the Film Institute. That is, I can also sensitize this film to double the speed by a technique called pre-flash or post-flash. And then I was looking for the faster lenses. And then at the same time, the lenses being designed by Zeiss Lens Company in Germany for the Stanley Kubrick film. He wanted a lens, faster lenses, because he had a sequence in Barry Lyndon film where the candlelight situations are there. So they were making for him special lenses of 1.4. But till then the lenses were 2.5, 3.2, and this is something technically, that 1.4 aperture means faster than 2.2, 2.5, 3.2.
Sure.
So that means sensitivity of the lens is much more. So I knew about that also. And then I told the producer that the combination of those fast lenses and a technique of pre-flash, we can do this film at ease. He said, go ahead. Yeah. Then I had to, and this pre-flash technique cannot be in India. Even today they can't do it. It needs different kind of printers.
So what exactly you do in the pre-flash?
So what happens is pre-flash means you make the film a little more sensitive, that the shoulder level of graft has to be increased slightly. So it is a kind of creating a kind of chemical fill-in light, chemical boost to the film, which you raise the contrast level. So underexposed you will not get it so much. You get your blacks. At the same time, you get a kind of automatically a fill-in light,
okay,
even when you are exposing under light conditions.
So it was done through some mechanism.
Yes. So what they do is they actually in a laboratory, they put the film, and of course you have to do a series of tests in which position you can grade this film. You want to grade it 150, or you want to grade the film to 200 or 250. So you are underexposed. in actual where to your actual locations where you feel this is a location where you want to shoot and you have underexposure. So you shoot there, go back to the lab process it and finds how much underexposure. So they kind of the flash cell film, your raw stock is flashed actually with a pure white light.
After shooting it.
No, it can be in the beginning it is your test.
Okay.
So you already shot.
Correct.
Yeah. So the unprocessed film, they flash
Before it gets processed.
before it gets, and then they go back to the processing.
Okay.
Then you see how the contrast level has increased,
Okay.
decreased, and how your film lights have been noticeable.
And what is this post flash thing?
This is a post flash.
Okay.
Post flash is you expose first,
Okay.
and then they flash,
Okay.
and then they check it and do
Okay.
it.
And pre-flash is?
Pre-flash is before you expose,
Okay.
the raw stock is being flashed,
Okay.
and that is a separate film by itself.
True.
It's already pre-flashed cans.
Okay.
So those cans you use it only when you want to shoot where the underlying conditions.
Okay.
And so I selected for the pre-flash technique because post-flash is a little risky for me.
True.
If I shoot and then I go back to them and they do here and there, and I lose my visuals.
So how much in terms of ASA is
So
it
that
into?
100 ASA I gone into by test 250 ASA.
That's almost 1.5 stop.
Yeah, and then I acquired my own lenses, 1.4 lenses,
That
Okay.
high-speed lenses.
high-speed lenses, and combination of the high-speed lenses and the pre-flash. This Air India film became very easy for me to shoot in, in Kenya, in Paris, in New York, in London, in Hong Kong, all those places, Germany, in Frankfurt, their airports, their service, their dispatch of baggage, their computer rooms, and in-flight, passengers getting in, So all that was done, at ease, because
So
I was
you
sure
use-
of getting my visuals.
True. But how much percentage of the film was shot with this pre-flash stop?
Well, half of them,
Okay. So,
yeah. Where they don't need, naturally, I never used it.
okay.
So the 50% of film, I used pre-flash.
But
film.
how much it costed in terms of raw stock if you buy and then do the pre-flash? Was it very expensive because it was happening abroad?
No. You see, there was no choice then. It was a
Correct.
film. In
True.
any case, every film has to be shot with the raw stock only. Yeah. But in this, you see, that since it's a good budget film. After all, you'll have to shoot in 5 different continents.
True.
Yeah. So the additional cost was that pre-flash technique,
True.
which I had done in movie lab in New York.
But the processing happened in India or for
The-
that pre-flashed raw stock?
It was wherever we were shooting, we were getting it processed.
Okay.
So,
So
in
not-
Paris,
okay.
in Paris, in London.
So nothing
New York.
special need to be done in the processing?
No. So whatever we shot in India, it was done here.
Okay.
So I knew what actually, because it has to be actually labeled. The pre-flash can has to be labeled for the processing time, the processing time. So that we have done it much easily because it was, the lab in India would have been a little risky because they were not knowing much of this technique then, not even today. In fact, I don't think anyone has done this. And myself also, I have not done the second assignment after Air India because then the very year later it became 200 years film was available. Let's say. Then it became 320 available, then it's 400, then 500. So that was a challenging film for me, And I should go back to 1965. This was 1982. 1965, that is only a year after I came out of the institute. Okay. Again, Image India Films Private Limited, after seeing my work and my commercials, my approach, they said that
Who was the owner of this company?
the Air India, the Image
Image.
India Films Private Limited was a private limited company having 4 directors.
Directors.
One Clement Baptista, Vijayakar, both Bombay based, and Krishnamurthy, Bangalore, and Shanti Chowdhury. Shanti Chowdhury was contemporary Satyajit Ray.
What's the full name of Krishnamurthy?
Not MV.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was a director in Bangalore, and the company director Santi Chowdhury in Calcutta,
Okay.
and Ramesh Thapa, who is Karan Thapa's father.
Correct.
He was in Delhi.
Okay.
You know? And there was a financial backup was
Karan Thapar, this television guy.
yeah, his
Okay.
father was
Okay.
Ramesh Thapa.
Okay. Okay.
And they used to come out a seminar magazine.
Okay.
Remember?
Now I remember very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. So he was a company director in Delhi.
Okay.
Yeah. So the films division had given came out with the script on Ellora Caves,
Okay.
and they have been sleeping over that script for last 3 years. Neither they could do nor OP, outside producers,
Correct.
were anyone coming forward to do that film. So the very first year of
Because
my,
it was low light condition shoot and very difficult to
so,
shoot.
so what happened is Baptista told me, Clement Baptista told me that now I can talk to you freely. Okay, this is a script, you know. So you think you can do something? So I went to the script, and then I said, but script has, you are supposed to cover all the caves in Ellora Caves, and description of caves are there, you know, very deep into the mountains, mountain, beautiful architecture, and it's a scar from top to bottom, It's one of the rare architectural wonders, because architecture is always from down to up, and this was done from top to bottom. I said, okay, you send me to the place. Though he sent me for the survey of Ellora Caves near Aurangabad. Yeah.
I've been once there.
You've been once there. And you see, then I stayed there for 24 hours. Then I came back. I said, yes, it can be done. Then I explained to him, put a full scheme, how we can do it. All the caves were facing west. All the caves were facing west. So I said that is a great advantage for me. And the reason is the sun rises. Then what I'll do, I will line up a lot of big mirrors, in front of the caves. And the moment sun rises over the mountain, the sunlight I carry into the caves. And that as my source, then I use the reflectors.
From the mirror.
Then I can light up all the sculptures, pillars, the roof and everything. The reason being that there was no approach. No motor can go, except, only pedestrians. So there is no question of taking any generator, and there was no power. You see, it was completely isolated. That there was no way other than using only the daylight. And that was real challenging. My very first year after the incident. And that film, actually, I succeeded doing the film. Shot in all the caves, deep into the mountain. The same way, breaking the sunlight from the mirrors to reflectors and lighting up. And the black and white film. And that time, there used to be plus. You have
Kodak Plus.
Kodak Plus, Kodak Double X, and Tri-X also. So faster film. That film really became a milestone for the films division. Got several awards for the film, and Film Cinema APA. That was my real challenge.
Just a quick question, because sun keep moving, So how did you manage in terms of because the mirror are generally they are very delicate to move around here and there. So how did you manage the movement of the sun, and hence the position of these lights also keep changing because the bounce thing coming from the mirror?
see that sun naturally to keep all the time keep moving it. So these are the larger mirrors, the 4x6 mirrors.
Okay.
Mirror was, so as long as the sun was within that mirror, traveling, so I was getting, a consistent light at one place. But there is constantly someone has to be adjusting it. Every mirror has a guy standing there, and he has been pointed out in a particular place where he has to. So he had been adjusting it slowly, gradually, you see. And sometimes in my middle of the shot he was adjusting. So that was a problem. So there used to be, there was a warning actually that, whistle means don't touch the mirror. So that kind of thing. So that constantly the adjustment was being done.
And then it was bounced by the reflectors.
Once there is one mirror inside the cave, that mirror used to be again broken. Mirror light I never used it.
Yeah.
It was again is back into the reflectors only.
True.
Because mirror light was very
very
patchy
strong
and very strong. Yeah. So it always broken again back into
diffuse
to the reflectors.
Kind of.
And sometimes I had also used where I used to put the mosquito net over the mirror itself, so that that itself
Cut down the intensity.
broken into soft light.
Soft light.
So that way, and it took a little more time. We shot almost about 1 week. So after the sun, the moment it crossed midday sun, then we used to come outside and do the outside light, outside caves, where we don't need inside the caves. So this way we have completed the film, and film is excellent.
And it was how long the total film?
It's a 20-minute film, documentary, two-reeler, and it is called Kailash at Ellora. It's a Kailash temple. The concentration was Kailash temple at Ellora caves.
Coming back again to feature films, though you have done a lot of advertising, but at the same time you have been working in feature films also. So could you talk about this film that on Taj Mahal, the love story film which you shot for this director Akbar Khan?
Akbar Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done some 7-8 feature films compared to many others. I've done a lot of them because that was my not regular field of professional field. I was more in commercials and documentaries and corporate films. Taj Mahal, The Eternal Love Story, produced and directed by Akbar Khan. That was my last feature film. The earlier films were quite a lot of them. Among them, one of the best known film was Mrik Krishna. That was shot in 1974 or 75. Yeah. And well, definitely Taj Mahal, The Eternal Love Story was really a big canvas. It has very big sets were very big, very complicated sets. Some of the sets were highly decorated and bringing that historical era, Samur era film. So they elaborated costumes and decor. All that has to be actually properly exposed, properly shot, properly positioned within the frame. And the sets were also quite big. And some of the sets actually on location. That most of the film we shot in Jodhpur, Marangarh Fort. Marangarh Fort in Jodhpur was taken for about 2 years lease by the producers, and the lot of actual location areas been converted through the art director's design to rooms and alleys and lobbies and other things. So the problem there is because it's not a film studio where you can just easily have catwalks and some height, enough height to do the lighting. So here, the problem was their actual location sets. So your lighting is a must because there are no any natural light coming in. You have to light up every corner of it, whether it's a daylight scene or night scenes. So there it used to be a really tough job because even to position the light somewhere where you don't see the light. Apart from that is the cabling. You can't just take any cable from the ground because all the time ground isn't a friend. So it has to be on the cabling has to be done to the roof. See? And the hiding the lights and cables, camouflaging them. That was actually a good challenge, and some day for night scenes were also done there, and which again is very critical. What is it right time of the day, then actually you get the right exposure for your contrast visuals for day for night. So all that has to be worked out in advance.
Could you just elaborate this day for night scenes, particular scenes which you shot in this film?
This film has the main sequence where there's invasion on the fort, by the Aurangzeb troops to Shah Jahan's palace, and all the climbing of the walls, particularly, and getting into the fort, through the top of the fort and through the huge doors and going through the steps. All that actually, the mixed, some are sequences are night, some are actually the day for night. So day for night actually what you'll have to do is to shoot at the middle of the day and you get a high contrast. You should avoid either backlight or middle of the day, never direct light. That should be avoided first. And second thing, you have these filters, day and night filters, and also underexposing two stops. Combination of underexposing two stops, using the low sensitive filter, low sensitive film, and then at the same time
low sensitive film in the sense
use a 50 ASA, lower than the speed. You have lesser sensitive film.
Okay.
What do you say it?
Fine grain
ASA.
films.
Yeah. ASA should be lower.
Low, correct.
So in this case, the 50 ASA.
Sure.
You have 50 ASA, 100 ASA, 200 ASA films are there. So you can take the low 50 ASA, at the most 100 ASA film you can do it, and you should also use polarizer filter.
So what does the polarizer would do in a day for night situation?
Polarizer filter, what happens is, first of all, it completely makes your sky dark. So the sky exposure becomes least, which is necessary because you don't see the sky in the night.
True.
So the idea visually is sky is dark.
True.
For that, the effective filter is polarizer filter.
And you also said that there are some filter called day for light filters.
Yeah, day for night filters are, it is little greenish. It's a greenish filter, day for night. There is another filter, it's called 81EF. 81EF is a trade name, the effective filter. That again is reducing your skin tones, keep the skin tones slightly, and other things go darker. Because you want characters to be seen. The rest of it has to be under lighting conditions. So combination of the slow film against light or afternoon light and polarizer filter, or if day for night EF filter, or I have this special filter which is green, very green tone. These combinations are always used to getting an effect of day for night. Day for night is you shoot a night scene during the day. where you can't elaborate lighting conditions can be applied. So Taj Mahal, I have used this thing, and some of the war scenes also, when they attack in the night, again we have used different items.
But did you also manipulate it a little bit in the post-production, because now there are a couple of facilities?
Yeah, so the post-production also, you'll have to keep in mind while shooting.
True.
So you can't just do anything in post-production, which I don't believe in myself. You'll have to achieve as much as you can, in a raw form. And in a post-production, naturally, you can further manipulate in the sense of mutilating the colors. Yeah. So if you see any bright colors, you can just subdue them. Or you can actually make sky, if it is still sky is seen, little glowing sky, you can make it darker. You see. And today's technology, where you have the windows can be created specifically where you want to highlight. So those things I have not done much in that, though we also gone through the DI process. But as much the least manipulation of visuals I have done in my Taj Mahal, the Eternal Story film.
Also, for this film, could you talk about your lighting scheme in terms of, because it's a period film, and when we think of a period film, there are certain cliches come into our mind in terms of sepia and this and that. So the film look have a very important thing for this particular film. So what was exactly your concept in terms of creating a feel of the period for this film?
In this film, the director never wanted it to be make one of those sepia kind of one single tone. No, he said no. I need to keep it natural. I need the costumes, the jewelry. Everything has to appear properly. That he never wanted it to. Notice subconsciously. He wanted them to notice very prominent. So that is one of the reasons I never had one single tone, of the entire film. So my manipulation of visuals are not much in that case. See. The look of the film I maintained is more or less natural. Only the scenes I had to handle where there used to be, there was no other than the candlelight or the mashals, you see. So that more or less I try to keep up, source of mashal or source of candlelights only. At the same time, I had never tried to create too much of contrast, because that is again is a brief from the director. He said, no, please don't do that. So within that parameters of natural light source, I have to do, and I think it was successfully done.
Coming back now to the digital era, where everything is almost converted to a digital system. There are major companies, say for example like Canon, Ariflex, Red, and now the Blackmagic also has introduced a camera. So given the choice that producer has a budget and everything, what is your personal priority in terms of working with a particular camera, and why do you prefer that particular camera? Because of what are those features?
Here I must say that I'm definitely the fortunate cinematographer to go through for the last 50 years using the film as a base for me to recreate visuals. And I actually feel sorry for now onwards for the cinematographers to miss something, and then because the digital era is now taken over.
So we will talk about this recent changeover from film to digital medium. So how do you feel that the various companies which have launched their high resolution cameras, say Canon has come out with 500 cinema, then Alexa is already there in the market, Red is there, so Blackmagic has also introduced another. So what is your personal priority in terms of using a particular camera or a brand for that matter, and how does it help you to achieve those film results? because those references still remain close to films.
Well, the things have changed now. The number of digital cameras have been in the market. Yeah. But I must say here is what cinematographer is going to miss is that magic of the film. You know. And I definitely consider I'm one of those few cinematographers taken full advantage of celluloid. You know. And it was a really fun and very satisfaction when we were shooting with the celluloid. And the kind of cameras, excellent cameras. Now, since things have changed, everything is going to be digital. So it came into films very fast. In the last 2-3 years, things have changed. And the motion picture cameras used to be called ARRI 2C, ARRI 3, 435, 535, Mitchell cameras, or ARRI Cam, Panavision. So several kinds of cameras, very, very sophisticated, very friendly. Is now going to be replaced with digital cameras, which are mainly the electronics. The motion picture earlier cameras were also having the electronics, but the
core was mechanical.
least essential ingredients in the camera used to be. Today, there is no mechanical part in the electronic cameras. Whereas earlier motion picture cameras had mechanical as well as electronics. Today, electronic cameras have no mechanical parts. Everything is electronics. And there are many cameras now. Nowadays, you name it. You have red cameras. You have in red cameras there are many models. The latest is called
Scarlet.
Red Epic. Red Epic. Scarlet is part of the Red Epic. Then you have the main, today's most popular, the main camera being used by the motion picture industries is Alexa. It is made by the Arriflex company. The Arriflex has always been the main source of camera equipment in India. So it was much easier for the Indian producers, cinematographers to take over something which is made by the Arri company. So they came out with the Alexa camera, which is very, very popular and very, very close to the film look. The word is a myth, film look. There is nothing. You can never be a film look as far as I know. In the near future, I won't know. But till today, it's openly challenging. That is the word is only film look. It's not.
It's not film.
It's a film. The visuals can never be. This whole system of capturing visuals through the celluloid is a different granular system, and then is pixel systems. So there are two different systems. They will never be matching each other. Yeah. So you have a lot of these cameras, and then you have. Sony is coming out with different cameras, very professional high-end cameras called F65. They are also coming out with the lower-end F55. Then Arri has their own so many other brands already. Alexa, Alexa Plus, Alexa Studio, and now they're coming out with the XT, which has got a recorder also, which 4K recorder. And then you have other cameras which are being modified from the still camera to the motion picture, like 5Ds, 7Ds, Canon 300, Canon 500. See, those are all cameras. I'm not very familiar with other cameras except Alexa camera. So I have done quite a number of films with Alexa. And also occasionally I used one or two commercials with Epic. So it's depending on which camera is friendly with which cinematographer. You see. So so the choice are now much more. And the second thing is these are the very easy to handle, not like motion picture cameras.
So we were talking about the personal choice or personal taste about various cameras.
Yeah, so there are a lot of cameras are there. If you name that, you have Alexa, you have Sony's F65, F55, and they have earlier other cameras also right there. And then Alexa has come out with many models. You have Alexa, Alexa Plus, Alexa Studio. Now this new one is coming out called XT. That is having the built-in 4K recorder. Then you have in Epic also is coming out with something with a Dragon sensor. So that's not yet come. And then there are going to be many. In electronics, what happens is a little bit change here and there, and they can market it as a new model. And it was never there in motion picture. The last 50 years, there were only 5 cameras in motion picture. But for the last 2 years, there are about 16 digital cameras, including you have a
GoPro and
So there are it's much easier for them to market it. Also, they are not that expensive. So where the money is going to be in a good lenses. So whatever camera you have to have a good lens. A good resolution has to be perfect. Sensitivity to increase higher aperture. So then I don't know now. It's depending on the how and how much is a comfortable level. Comfort level for each cameraman has to have according to the equipment. Whatever he's using more frequently, he feels like that's more comfortable. So that is necessary, and you have to get little used to every camera with electronics. And they have, the earlier the cameraman has a temperament. Today cameras have temperament. See, so cameras temperament also you have to understand. It's difficult for you to, you can't just say that I am only the temperament. I only control my temperament. It's not true. And then that varies according to the conditions, the temperature conditions, the humidity conditions.
One more important thing, how much is the effective in terms of repair mechanism for the camera, because they are electronics and they are very expensive. So how much effective mechanism is in place in India, whether it is Alexa or RED?
Yes, that's a very good point, saying that now these cameras can't be that easily repaired. See, they are all component based, it has to be replaced. Every time you have to replace something or other in the camera. And that costs a lot of money. Second thing is these manufacturers are not easily approachable in our country because they don't have any service space. The Alexa is trying to have their own here, and they are more or less at the moment they take the responsibility. But I'm not sure yet. Other cameras, if anything goes wrong, you have to go through again export to that country and get it repaired or replaced. So they are going to be the whole procedure is now going to be expensive and time consuming, because your camera it will become out of commission for weeks and weeks. Okay. Unlike motion pictures where most of it can be done. Yeah.
Just the last question, because though I can talk to you for length, hours and hours, because you have so much of experience of so many years. What Anything specific during your career as a cinematographer you would like to talk, or something specific, or anything? Because now I have to wrap up, so I would like to give you the liberty to say anything which I may not have asked you and you think it is important for the article.
Well, if you're talking about cinematographers, a cinematographer is apart from the learning technical
Aspects.
the techniques of the cameras are technical aspect of it. Yeah. In any case, the aesthetics which you have to develop yourself. Aesthetics can't be, it's not a 2+2. So that has to be developed. But of course, it's not inborn. It is to be developed through your own exposure, your own learning capacity, your own understanding. But the other thing is your personality has to be close to, your personality has to be close to the kind of work which you will have to deal with. In the sense, cinematographer has to have certain temperament. He's one of the 100 unique members, but he's unique. He has to be a unique member among the 100 unique members, because he has to be very close to the producer director who's actually giving you the brief, which you like to translate into visuals through tools. Cameras are tools. They don't produce anything. They are at your command. What you want, they do it. So everything you will have to understand, what you want to actually use this tool and create visuals. At the same time, you will also have to handle the number of people around you who are working for you. It's an art director, or it's the makeup man, or the hairstylist. They do their job, but when you see through the camera, a few things you can notice. So those things also has to be consciously have to notice it. At the same time, you have your own lighting crew, your gaffer, your assistant cameraman who is following your focus. You're transferring your data from your visual camera, your electronic cameras. So you have to be conscious, all this field, how cleverly or how handle to your interest, to your benefit. So that temperament you have to create yourself. That's very important for the cameraman. At the same time, you are not going to work with only one director. The various kind of different talented, different mood of directors, with whom you work. So you have to understand them. You have to try to be. You cannot create visuals without a director's help. It's the moment you think that you are doing something, director wants to do something, it will never work. That clash one should avoid.
Thank you very much for your time, and I wish I could have done a little long recording. Maybe at some other point we would do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.